Yo! Video games. What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who kept us going for over 340 episodes.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week is John L. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. We're getting really close to that tree fitty.
We are. We're getting super close to it. And then that means 7 years. That means like 7 years of doing
Well,
this.
we're also getting real close to, you could listen to an episode a day for a whole year.
Yeah. That's actually, I'm kind of excited to see if somebody will try and do that, because we've had a couple of dudes like actually listen. At least they've caught up where they've listened every business day. I know, like, well, they'll listen to one episode a day at work. But before we get into today's topic, we have a sponsor to thank, Manscaped. So it's the height of summer if you're in the northern hemisphere.
It sure is, if you live anywhere around where we do.
Yeah, all of our Aussies are all like, it's freezing, it's fucking cold as hell. Anybody that is listening in Argentina is like, it's winter, shut up. I want all my ball hair. But if you're concerned at all for your summer bod, now is the perfect time to check out our sponsor today, Manscaped. They've got deals for like the Platinum Package 2.0, get their ball cream, their deodorant, stuff like that. But the two things that I want to talk about most today are probably our two favorite products. Well, in our top three favorite products, which is, of course, the Lawnmower 4.0, gotta be up there. And that is their ball trimmer, which is excellent. You can use it on wet hair if you want to do it in the shower. I don't know about submerging it personally.
It's waterproof. It has a little light on it, so when you're in like the deep in the crevasses,
it's probably at least splash proof. Like, I have a hard time saying.
I believe the product actually said, it is. I mean, I haven't done it in the shower or like while like raining down on me.
Yeah, I've done it in the shower. I haven't done it under the water.
I'm waiting for a really rainy day. I want to try it like in the rain, like super au natural.
Next headline you see is he gets arrested for indecent exposure because he forgot to wear his Boxers 2.0. I kept one pair in the box just to show you guys that it comes in a kind of slick, unboxable box.
These are super comfortable. I'm wearing mine right now.
Are you wearing yours right now?
Show them. Excited.
Do it. Be a man. No, I'm kidding.
I was very excited to I got my clean laundry load back. I'm like, yes, I can go back into my Boxers 2.0s because they're super hyper comfortable.
Get right up into them.
It almost feels like you're wearing nothing at all. No, actually, no. It actually does feels great, soft. but it also doesn't feel constricting. It's got a little pouch, specially designed for the royal jewels.
Keep that Joey in that pouch, huh?
That's right. Keep that Joey in that pouch.
If you're interested in checking out the Boxers 2.0 or the Lawnmower 4.0, please head over to manscaped.com. Use our code YoVG, all caps, for 20% off and free shipping worldwide. That's code YoVG, all caps, at manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping worldwide. Your balls, well, thank you.
Mine have thanked me.
But, okay, so speaking of
I got you tongue-tied on that one, didn't I?
You did. I fucked up. I wanted to be like, thank you, Matt's balls. Speaking of thanking your balls, and I don't know why, project management. That's what Manscaped's all about, is project management.
You become a pro at managing your own projects with our sponsor, but
today has been a wash. With we've been trying to move away from news stories specifically because we've been kind of doing that a lot in the podcast. So I know we've been like, we want to move a little bit away from doing the news. Everybody's got fucking news. But today was just like delay after delay after delay. It was like Jason
shitty day for some people. This was a real shitty day for some people.
Yeah, it was like Jason Schreier was having a fucking field day with like scoop. But there it seems like, and this is your words, not mine, but there's a gaping asshole where project managers should be in the industry right now.
Either that, or you could just say like they're not like what's going on. Why there is a pandemic of project mismanagement, I should say.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I wonder, is this just COVID finally catching up?
and I don't think so, because
How
I
long
feel
are we
like
going to blame COVID for everything?
for over a year, because a lot of studios kind of went back to to settling into what they're going to settle into like last year, like 2020, and then like maybe half of 2021, was definitely like heavily impacted from COVID. But here we are midway through 2022, and now we're getting announcements of delays, and the thing is, I don't want to like completely discredit it, because I'm sure maybe one or a couple of these stories, maybe they have some relation to COVID. But from what the digging I've been what digging I've been able to get into and read about, and firsthand accounts coming out on the internet, these things don't actually sound like COVID related. Like, actually, that doesn't even get brought up in most of these news stories, actually. So, and like you
It's
kind of
mostly just like a talent
yeah, and
exodus.
kind of what you said earlier too. Where it's like, how long are we going to keep blaming COVID? You can't keep blaming COVID forever for some of this stuff. So, yeah, I'm gonna hold on. Give me one sec. I want to check into, because like we'll start with KOTOR, I guess, because that's nice and simple. Single game got indefinitely delayed, and its art and design directors were
Left.
let
Oh,
go.
they were let go. They didn't leave. They were
Yeah, no,
fired.
they were fired.
That's so the look was so bad.
Yeah.
They were
So
so
no one's
off the
been able to
mark.
really get like, okay, so what's the story here?
That's
What's the
wild.
story here? I'm not gonna like kind of like I'm not gonna like shout it out too much. This came from a Reddit post on KOTOR a few weeks back. This was from a few weeks back on Reddit. Um, Basically, as a title, I know someone working for Aspire on Project Romeo. Aspire is the developer making the remake, Austin-based developer. Project Romeo, their code name for the KOTOR remake. And there have been major changes on the project, as the creative designer has been fired and all engineers reassigned, which today we learned our design director was fired.
Wow.
Apparently, the vertical slice they showed to Sony execs was not up to par, and the last few weeks have been filled with staffing changes and demands from higher ups. I wonder if he means Sony in
Higher
this.
ups.
Yeah, this culminated in a meeting today that work on Project Romeo was indefinitely on hold. Also, some things I have gotten from my friend: the game will be third-person real-time combat. The original voice cast is returning to their roles for the most part. Calo Nord and Saul Kareth have been gender flipped. I have no idea who these people are. In Kareth's case, he is now a black woman. I have no idea who they are, because KOTOR put me to sleep. Most side quests were being massively expanded upon from the original game. This was not going to be just a new coat of paint on the original. Believe me or not, whatever. None of this probably matters, as the project seems to be floating dead in the water for the time being. Which is
That's
funny,
sad.
because that lines up with today's report of the art lead and the creative lead were fired, and the game is on indefinite hold, or delayed indefinitely.
So
And
when they say delayed indefinitely, why do they say that rather than just saying canceled? Because there's
here's
a
what I'm
chance it'll
guessing.
come back.
So apparently, from what I'm also kind of gathering with this KOTOR thing, is that there was some expectation, maybe from Sony or someone else, maybe Disney, that this game was going to be done at the end of 2022. Like, they were going to release it at the end of this year. And they went in with this vertical slice and were basically like, yeah, it's nowhere near ready. It's going to take, a couple more years. And then basically, maybe Sony, maybe Disney, who knows, was like, whoa, that is not what we were expecting. We were not expecting the game to be far away, this far off. What's fucking going on? Like, maybe that's, but I don't know why that would lead to firings, and reshuffling of developers and engineers and whatever. But I kind of almost buy into the thing where, like, hey, they had this vertical slice, they showed it, and then Sony and Disney were like, the fuck, this is nowhere near good enough. It kind of sucks to learn, like, oh, they fired their art lead. It's like they looked at the art and went, this is fucking terrible. Like, you suck. Yeah.
Well, if it was Disney, yeah, Disney's probably pretty particular about art, I guess. They do that. I don't know. So here's the reason why I'm sort of confused. One, how long ago did they announce this?
I don't remember it being that long ago. Maybe a year ago? Maybe
So they
less?
thought an entire remake of KOTOR that they were expanding upon greatly. Maybe they didn't know they were expanding on it. It's just,
you think maybe like the left hand doesn't know what the right was doing maybe in this situation?
Yeah, because KOTOR's not a short game.
No, it's not. And maybe someone at Sony or Disney was under the assumption that they were just going to make a pretty version of KOTOR 1 and then call it a day at that, right?
Well, yeah, but you'd have to update the combat. The combat doesn't work anymore in a modern setting. It doesn't. I played it. I streamed it actually, and I liked it, but it doesn't stand up. Like if you released that type of combat today, I think it would piss most people off.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's a little too clunky and slow. Like it definitely needed updating. And I'm gonna say, like, well, people at Disney probably had no fucking idea how game development works. And they had no idea
how they've exited game development twice now.
Twice, maybe 3 times or more. So like maybe it's just like I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if they're just kind of like, well, we just told you to make the graphics better. Why why is this taking so long? What the fuck? Like, so maybe it's kind of like, it's funny. They're like, okay, you've got a project management issue here. This should have been done. This shouldn't have taken this long. We're firing some people, getting new people in here. And it's like, well, either way, game's not coming out anytime soon anymore, regardless. But, maybe Disney just didn't realize that, like, if you want a full remake of a game from fucking 2003 or whatever it was, yeah, you can't just slap new coat of paint on that shit. It's not going from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5. Like, I don't even know what the original KOTOR ran on. It probably ran on some, I think it ran on some,
obscure,
BioWare proprietary engine, from 20 fucking years ago.
Well, that, and I mean, it's gonna print money. Not only is it one of the most beloved Star Wars games...
it was called the Odyssey engine.
Jesus. But not only is it one of the most, like, beloved Star Wars games, it's instantly recognized. Like, a good Star Wars game, gonna print. I don't understand how they fucked this up. Basically.
Yeah, okay, I was right. It was a BioWare developed engine exclusively for their games at the time. So, God, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Maybe this was just a complete wires crossing or complete misunderstanding of game development from Disney or Sony or both or someone. I don't know. Yeah. But what a lot of people notice is how fucking terrible it's, because there was some other Star Wars Eclipse, which we've definitely brought up more than once, and that's having all these troubles. So it's like this curse of the Star Wars games.
Yeah, but is that just because Disney sucks to work for, or is it because all of these different projects are falling apart?
The projects are falling apart. KOTOR's odd. Is weird because, like, Aspire's mostly been like a smaller port house developer. They take old games, port them to new stuff, or like whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's never been like, oh, they're they're not Blue Point, though they're both in Austin.
Yeah, that's one of the criticisms that this has had from the beginning, right? Is Aspire doesn't do shit this big.
Right, and that is one of the criticisms. A lot of people were like, hey, we all saw this coming the minute Aspire was named as a developer.
So I guess I have the question of, how does one become a project manager in gaming? Like in commercials and in film, you got a production coordinator or like a UPM.
Yeah.
But you have a producer whose job is to schedule and keep everybody on track and sort of make sure everyone, and it's not an easy job. Project management is a soft skills heavy job that's hard to define. Like, you can't go to school for project management, as far as I know.
I mean, you can basically, like, managerial anything or just learning how to like properly deal with humans. It's definitely a skill that plenty of big companies don't have.
And you have to have had enough experience in various different aspects of production, or in this case, game development, to know when somebody is giving you reasonable time frames, right?
Yeah, it's because like, okay, so project manage, I mean, and maybe it's different between studio and genre or whatever, but like, their job is sort of to like make sure that whatever department, because sometimes a lot of times you have project managers for different departments.
Yeah,
it's not just one project manager,
right?
it's
But they'll all report to someone central who's managing the whole project,
which is like the producer, I guess. But like, a project manager's job is to make sure that the stuff is getting done, but also, B, that like, and this is probably the part that doesn't happen at all, is making sure that the team doing it is obviously comfortable or addressing the needs of the developers, which in turn is to get their department getting what they need to get done. So there's something really fucking wrong, because I feel like in the game industry right now is like you've got people who say one, or maybe promise one thing, or think one thing, but they have no idea what's really going on in the trenches, and they probably don't care. And that's probably there's probably a lot of butting heads now, because honestly, it's funny because Cyberpunk probably shook the industry more than ever.
Well, I think it scared the shit out of a lot of people.
Yeah, because the thing is like the fallout of Cyberpunk was also that the development part of that CD Projekt Red was like, we told you, you didn't listen, you just kept pushing it through, and look what, and it finally happened, where like a major, highly anticipated game came out, and it was a disaster. So much of a disaster that Sony pulled it off its stores, wouldn't even sell the fucking product. Sony and Microsoft were both offering, I think Steam even was offering refunds. They had to some 13, it was like 7 million copies were refunded immediately, went through refunds within a month, of the 13 sold.
Pretty rough, yeah.
So, it got to a point where it was like, no, you can't bully your way into a release, because and it hasn't stopped, but the game industry still does this, where like, release a game, release it early, release it unfinished, patch it, fix it, whatever. The outcry will not, the outcry is never going to monetarily overtake the actual sales of the product. We have a whole marketing department to hype you the fuck up on this. Who cares if it has some issues at launch? We'll iron them out later, kind of thing. Crunch never really ends. So, but it got to a point. I think Cyberpunk we finally got to that breaking point where you can't do this anymore. You can't do this to the people making the game. You can't do it, and you really can't do it to the customers, because gamers are an entitled, selfish pack of pricks.
We are. I think in Aspire's case, though, it sounds like maybe the project's going fine. I think the creative must have sucked balls, because they killed the two creative leads. They didn't go after the head developer. They didn't go after the head programmer.
I want to say, according to Schreier, like, they were actually kind of going in. They were actually getting kind of excited because they had built up a vertical slice, and then they apparently, according to one of the directors they fired, he was completely blindsided by being let go. He had no, like, it was like a complete reversal of expectation.
Oh man, it must suck so bad.
I'm like, either this vertical slice was terrible, or they asked them, okay, so it looks, it's either sucked that bad, or, which according to someone was saying weeks ago, like, yes, it was. The other thing I could have seen was maybe they were like, okay, this looks great, when's the game, when are we shipping? And they're like, this is all we've got done at this state. And then they went, excuse me, the fuck have you been doing? You like, Like maybe it was like a realization you've only cobbled together a vertical slice, but it sounds like it was a terrible vertical slice. Honestly, it sounds like it just was like.
I think
Sounds like it was.
if it was like a hey, you're nowhere near being done, I don't think the creative leads are the ones who get their heads chopped off.
Yeah, that almost sounds like you'd think the response to this was like, okay, this is great. When are we shipping? And like, in a couple of years, it's like this is as much as we got done. Be like, well, what the fuck? Well, hire more people because we need this out way quicker than that. You would think it would just be an influx of hiring at that point,
right?
But it doesn't sound like it. This sounds like this is. It sounds like this was bad. This looked bad. They are getting rid of people.
I really hope someone leaks this vertical slice. I kind of want to know. Right? I want to know how bad it is.
Oh man,
they probably made it like Borderlands Toon style.
Oh man.
They're like fucking 5 years behind the times.
Yeah, you know what? Part of me wonders if maybe that was just the thing. Like maybe it just looked really janky. Maybe it had really fucking maybe it looked too much like the old BioWare game. In which case I'd be furious too. I'd be like, what the fuck?
God, that'd be amazing.
Especially if it's like Sony's making a big, paying for a big exclusive remake of KOTOR, and they come to me with something that looks mildly better than the 2003 game, I'd be like, fuck's going on here?
The vertical slice is just a close-up of a winking asshole. That's the equivalent of what happened. Okay, so let's talk about the other big shocker, which it turns out both of us read separate and probably have our own thoughts on. But the Eidos Montreal, the old, I guess he was the director at Eidos Montreal. Am I remember that correctly? Or was he the owner? No, he wasn't the owner. Founder. He was the founder of Eidos Montreal.
Eidos Montreal founder, yes.
Right.
And I don't know how to pronounce his name, Stéphane Diatou. Because French, I don't know, it's Astus or Atou. Diatou.
Asto?
Asto?
I'm be honest, I don't know.
I ain't French.
I was saying Denis Villeneuve's name fucking wrong.
Denis Villeneuve.
No, it's Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve.
Yeah, that's how he said it.
That's not how he says it.
That's how he said it on a podcast I was listening to. That's how I found out that he was fucking...
I watched an interview. It was like, hello, I am Denis Villeneuve.
Fucking wild. I don't know. I've been fucking things up forever. That's why I'm saying, like, if you're due to the week and like you've got a name that I just like absolutely butcher, absolutely call me out on it.
Well, here's the funny thing: is this founder? He left the company 9 years ago.
Yeah, right. He left in 2012,
2013,
right.
So he left in 2013. So this is not like someone who was in the trenches when the sale went off or whatever. But what was really interesting was the insight he had.
That the writing was on the wall.
The writing was on the wall all the way back in 2013, which I believe was right after they released the first Tomb Raider in that new trilogy reboot.
The good one.
Yeah, well, yeah. But there's definitely some things to be gleaned from this because he talks about Deus Ex Human Revolution, and he has he talks about a little bit of the Thief reboot that kind of went nowhere.
Because they forced it, right? He was saying that there was a lot of potential for it, and then they did nothing. Yeah,
he thinks he says an extra 9 months could have produced a much better product. But there was some really, to me, kind of damning info that was coming out of it. He was there when Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics signed a multi-project deal with Marvel. But he talks about how that was kind of the thing that the big headline quote here is that was that he said it was like a slow moving train wreck or train wreck in slow motion with a lot of the studios, all the Western Eidos studios.
Well, yeah, he basically says Square Enix clearly either didn't understand the IP or just did not value the IP at all.
Yeah.
Where they would constantly say that the Western studios were missing their marks by like drastic numbers, their expected profits by drastic numbers.
Yeah.
Where they would constantly devalue or undermine their Western IP, and then it sounds like they say this in the article that Square is trying to get bought by Sony.
Yeah, that's the one that's kind of grabbed a lot of people because he's just speculating there.
He's speculating that they offloaded that IP because they sold it for pennies, right? A single developer, Gearbox is who he names, with a single real good IP sells for 1.3 billion, but Eidos, which has several legacy strong IPs, they sell for 300 million. That makes no fucking sense.
It really doesn't, and it never did. I mean, I was saying that when the sale happened. I'm like, there's something fucky about this whole thing.
Yeah, well, we found it strange, but we didn't realize that it was because Square just straight up didn't think that, or was straight up shitting all over the Western studio. And I don't know if that's like a certain executive just didn't like the IP, didn't like those studios. Then why the fuck did they buy them?
Yeah, well, and it kept them afloat during the PS3 360 era when Square's Japanese studios were just shitting the bed with their projects commercially, critically, and Eidos was keeping them afloat.
Well, do you think it's like a resentment that they did?
I don't know if it is resentment or not, but it's like they definitely were keeping Square afloat as much of their PS3 360 era stuff just completely fucking floundered.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but it's like the thing that's got everyone in a tizzy though is that like if I read between the lines, Square Enix Japan was not was not as committed as we had hoped initially. And there are rumors, obviously, that with all these activities of mergers and acquisitions, that Sony would really like to have Square Enix within their wheelhouse. I heard rumors that Sony said they're really interested in Square Enix Tokyo, but not the rest. So I think Square Enix CEO Yosuke Matsuda-san put it like a garage sale. Basically, he got rid of Eidos as fast as he could to make the proposition for Sony more tangible. Which is weird because you'd think Sony would want the Tomb Raider IP. They would want Deus Ex,
Legacy
all that shit.
Kane.
Legacy Kane, but maybe Sony didn't. Maybe it was like, look, Sony was like, look, you're gonna argue, and rightfully so, the value of your company if you have all these other big brands on here. And so he's like, no, wait, I don't have these IPs.
Yeah. Well, why does Square Enix want to sell so bad? They must be in like some real trouble.
And I don't even think they are. I think it's just like Sony's offering billions, and that's where I'm kind of like the biggest confusing part to me is kind of like I don't think Square's in a position where they're necessarily in any sort of trouble, but maybe there's a bigger game of hardball going on behind the scenes here where, let's think of it this way, what if Tencent and other companies are going to buy up all the stocks and revenues, right? Or share, sorry. Yeah. What if there's like a hostile takeover through share buyouts, right? Where like they know that
they want to sell this
sooner than later. Yeah. Someone's going to hostile take over us because they're going to become majority shareholders, and it's probably going to be someone we don't really want. Maybe it is like Tencent, maybe it is something else.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean that's
maybe Sony. Like they're just like Sony's going to offer me, and a lot of this I think comes down to just honest to fuck God greed. Matsuno's kind of shown his ass lately with his whole $35 million investment into NFT software for in-game stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And this guy, I mean,
that's going well now.
Everything I've seen for like the last year, this guy looks like a greedy piece of fucking shit. And I feel happy being able to say that. So
is that the news we should expect? We'll just expect Sony's buying Squeenix.
Well, here's the thing. If Squeenix wants to be bought, everyone's going to go for them. Everyone will. And I think Sony is probably more desperate for Square than anyone else. Now, last week I said I think Nintendo and Square's business culture lines up perfectly, but it sounds like Nintendo's just very not much interested in acquisitions. They've implied as much. They would only do it if they absolutely had to. But like Nintendo's not going to get into a bidding war at an auction house for Square. That's just not them. That's not their style. They would only have to buy Square if it was like a necessity for them, kind of thing. And I think Sony probably looks at it as more of a necessity for Sony, because Sony's going to be like, we'll have 14, we'll have all the revenue 14 brings in, and we'll have Final Fantasy on lock. And having Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts on permanent lock for Sony probably to them is just like yes, like this, like.
Would 14 no longer be a PC game?
Oh no, it will, because Sony does PC stuff now, and they're dipping their toe a little. They're dipping more and more into it. They bought that one European developer just to port PS4 games over to PC. Every game except Bloodborne, not Bloodborne, specifically not Bloodborne.
Never Bloodborne.
Never Bloodborne. Fuck, because fuck Max. That's why apparently. Like just
well, what if someone mods
never let Bloodborne go to PC. PS4 only. I don't know what.
No remakes.
Really don't know what they're waiting on with that one. But no. Here's the thing. I think Sony's desperate because if Sony buys Square Enix, that basically is Sony Japan. They don't ever have to ever worry about having a Japanese presence in the market ever again. They will have Square Enix. They will have Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, 14, and they'll even have the godforsaken Dragon Quest games. Japan's covered forever then. Right? So
is Microsoft going to try and outbid them? Just to
really funny, wouldn't it?
Show them their ass.
Because Microsoft could do it, but Microsoft would also it would also be like, is this? That's such a fun thing, because this feels like a follow up to the last episode. But like, if it does come down to a bidding war between Microsoft and Sony, like Microsoft could win it easily, but it would also be really funny because like, does it benefit Microsoft enough? Because again, you're going to have to like now converting these massive amounts of Sony bots, who bought a PS5,
right?
For Final Fantasy 7 and 16 and shit, and then converting them over to Xbox, and it's like,
that's hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it's also kind of like, man, like.
Well, I'm trying to envision a world where everyone loses.
It's like, okay, it's return on investment. Like, they're going to get money for it, and they're going to get converts from it. But it's like the amount of money Microsoft would have to spend to acquire Square Enix and outbid Sony. Would it really be worth it in the end? Are they going to get that many more Xbox sales, that many more Game Pass subscriptions because of it? Would that because they already have they'll lose it, but it's like they already have a rotating number of Final Fantasy games on Game Pass, like 10, 2, like the 13 trilogy,
right?
Scraping the bottom of the barrel there, but like I think 15 showed up at some point, and 12 maybe, Zodiac Age.
So is there a world where Sony's losing the bidding war and Nintendo swoops in? Because there's no way Nintendo has more money than Sony, does it?
No, but they have a lot. And they have an incredible war chest, which Sony may or may not actually have. Because Sony's not doing super great as an overall company, but Nintendo is definitely one of those like, well, I've been saving my money. I've been putting it into war chests and shit. So Nintendo could do it. Nintendo could do it, but Nintendo probably just won't, because Nintendo's like probably going to look at it like, we've survived without Square Enix before. We can do it again.
We need no Squeenix.
Which is funny. I keep saying it's funny, but like, is it true though? Because like, man, people really like some of those HD 2D games that Nintendo has paid for timed exclusivity, like Octopath Traveler and Bravely Default 2 or whatever the fuck, and Triangle Strategy and Live Alive remake that just came out and is about to get buried by Xenoblade 3. Which that right there is kind of like, maybe it sucks because like apparently Live Alive is a really cool RPG, really cool idea, and it's like Nintendo should have smaller, even though it's not it's not Square Enix's biggest stuff, right? They're definitely not getting the cream of the crop from Square, but they're still getting good stuff from Square, and I think it would be good for Nintendo to. I would like to see Nintendo jump into the bidding war, even though they won't. Just because, like, I think it'd be good for their portfolio. It's like they could sit there and be like, "Well, we have Monolith Soft. Why do we need fucking Square Enix?" And I'm like, just to fill in.
No, I'm kidding.
And I'd be like, to fill in the gaps. I don't know. It would only suck if Nintendo bought it because then it's like, well, there goes PC games releases, and there goes Final Fantasy 7 and 16 looking good.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 7 remake would just suddenly take a real downturn.
Yeah, well, I mean, that game's so far along in development. Even if Nintendo were to buy them like tomorrow, they still have a contractual obligation to finish that game on PlayStation. So, let's just hope Nintendo has a new hardware coming out soon and it's good.
We'll see. Well, okay. So on top of what are the more delays? This is the week of delays. We've got the IDOS Montreal news, but Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Lord of the Rings Gollum,
which was about to come out like early September. It was right about to come out.
Yeah, well, I not one time have I seen something on this where I gave a shit. Like, not one time have I seen this talked about where I was like, yes, this is what I want. Yeah, because it also takes place in Mordor, doesn't it?
Yeah,
everything's more. Why the fuck Mordor?
There's a weird obsession. I did see some stuff that's not in Mordor from like one of the latest trailers, which I was like, oh, that's nice.
Wow,
but then it kind of just made me wish they would make someone would make a big open world Middle Earth game, that encompassed all of Middle Earth and not just fucking Mordor.
Where you play as a ranger, just get out there, fight evil wherever you find it. You're just exploring, maybe you get the powers of being able to yell in dragon tongue.
God forbid we do that. They should do a fourth Age game, honestly. Age of Man. Because that actually doesn't have a ton, to my knowledge. Not a lot is written about this. It's in the appendices, but it's like it's vague what happened. So I feel like there's a lot more canvas to paint with if you want to go into the fourth Age, which is just literally just post Lord of the Rings.
I guess, but I don't know if people would want to play post Lord of the Rings or if they'd want to play like in the lead up to the the War of the Rings.
I get it, but
like the first.
That's why I say there's more of a canvas to paint on there. I don't know, like fuck.
Before the fall of Numenor and that shit.
Right.
But I will never get that. Apparently, we will also never get Halo Infinite co-op campaign. That's
in beta.
It's
the beta's out there, and they're like it was funny because we had, I think he's one of our listeners. He was like, "Bro, it's 4-player." I'm like, I thought it always was. Like, to my knowledge, I thought Halo Infinite was always going to have 4-player co-op, but like, I guess some people were under the assumption it was just going to be 2-player. But no, like the online beta for Infinite co-op is 4-player.
Hell yeah.
Which I always thought it was. I thought it was. That's what I was waiting for. That's what I was excited about. But it's taken fucking forever to get to this point because
I have been waiting so long.
343 Industries is kind of a trash fire right now.
Yeah, Bungie's living its best life, and 343 over here is just trashing everything.
343 is not having a good decade, honestly.
Well, you remember when I forget which was what was 343's first game?
Halo 4.
Yeah, it was Halo 4.
Which I actually kind of liked.
Yeah, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is a new era of Halo games. They're going to do so good." 343, it's kind of been downhill from there.
Yeah, it really has.
They've really
It really, really has, because then you had Halo 5, which had a whole bunch of problems.
right.
And then you had Halo Master Chief Collection, which had a whole bunch of problems, which that was spread around multiple different developers, but still a whole bunch of problems.
Yeah, that wasn't 343's fault though.
Not all of it, not there. And then you have Halo Infinite, which has also been like a years-long disaster.
It's another slow motion train wreck.
It is. Oh my god, yeah. So 343 Industries is a slow motion train wreck. So again, it's not been a good decade for 343 Industries. It really hasn't. And they recently found out that like the way the games is so so there's a whole data problem where like if you play 2 matches online in Halo Infinite, you're downloading a gigabyte of data. So if you're in a part of the world where like you have data caps, like you cannot play Halo.
Because why are you downloading a gig of data?
So when a match ends and it loads up victory animations or player character emblems and tags,
no, you're downloading.
It's downloading a fresh copy every single time. Whoa. Which is not the way it's supposed to be. And they had like a really quick hotfix come in, and then they're like, "We'll try to fix this entire. We'll try to fix the project or the problem entirely in August." So they said like, there should be an August update to fully fix this. And it's like, how did you oversight this?
There was a summer, and I can't remember exactly which summer, but there was that summer where Halo 2 was out. And it was like the LAN, it was the business. Everybody was doing LAN shit. Like I remember my brother was in college.
Yeah.
And his entire floor, he was in computer engineering, and the entire floor of his dorm, everyone was like hooking together to do LAN parties and shit with Xboxes.
Nice.
And it was just like, it ran so smooth, and it was pretty straightforward, and it was like, oh, this is the greatest multiplayer game of all time because it was simple, straightforward, good map layout, and you got through actually the number one reason why is you could like round cycled very fast. There wasn't a shitload of time between. And now nope, there's all these animations and shit. The bullshit. What? Just get back to the basics here, man. Just get back to where the rounds load fast, the maps are, well laid out and easy to memorize. You just fucking red versus blue me, man. Like, how do you move so far away? Same with Call of Duty. Call of Duty's gotten just,
oh my god, Vanguard's awful about that.
Stupid.
Yeah, you have to see 4 end of match unique death victory animations for 4 different players at the end of every round. Can't skip it. Have to watch it. Oh man.
Why?
Oh man.
Why? It's, you know what it is? Are these multiplayer games being developed by people who don't play multiplayer games?
Oh my god. Okay, in the case of Vanguard, it's like you got to really wonder, like, who thought this was an okay idea? And usually the problem with Call of Duty is the fact that they have no time to fix anything.
Right.
Because being, every game is basically its own live service for at least 1 to 2 years. And they have to have new content up every week. So even if a problem comes up, fuck it, try to fix it. But like, you can't fix it. You actually have to be working on the next update. So like,
so what we need is an arcade shooter, like Call of Duty or even Halo 2, that has extremely little downtime between matches. You remember there was that big debate about whether 15 seconds between matches was enough because you couldn't go pee?
Well, yeah. Oh my god,
I need that.
You want to bring back that poor kid and his gold guns.
I want the 15 seconds between matches. Like I want that sweet spot. Yeah,
that his brother prestiged him. He lost all his gold guns. It was recorded and it was online. And
everybody was like, "Oh, it's so fake," but at the same time, it's like anybody that's ever had a brother knows it's not that fake. But we need that 15 seconds between matches again. We need that basic.
It's weird too for me because I still play Warzone, right? And like, there's like this thing of like, if you don't like fucking back out of the match, like say you get to the top 2, if you don't back out immediately, it forces you to watch the whole helicopter evacuation sequence, and then all the little tallying and brrr, brrr. It's funny because in Blackout, you kill the last person, this little thing just comes across your screen, and then you got about 20 seconds to basically do fucking, Fortnite dances on the player. I mean, the other player, he can literally just hold down circle and just bzz, and he backs out and he's gone. And he can boot up. He can actually boot up real quick to the next match or to the next queue.
Right.
So it had like this sort of like, okay, the winners can kind of dick around, for 20 seconds if they wanted to. Anyone else, all you have to do is hold square for about 1 second, and then you're out, and then it's gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like within 10 seconds, you can actually just like click through the scorecard, and then on the next queue. And yeah, like you're right. I think downtime between matches is fucking weird and frustrating in a lot of multiplayer games now. We were having this problem hard in Multiverses, which the public open beta came out today. Everyone can jump in on it now. But it takes a solid fucking minute usually to find a match. And then it takes about another 30 to 45 seconds to wait for the other people to like queue up. And even after they've selected their character and perks, like you often have to wait like 20 seconds for the game to just finally start loading into the match.
Yeah, what is all that bullshit in between?
I don't know. Well, it's like they just get, and it's like, it's not because it's loading. It's like, it's literally just giving them plenty of time to choose. Like, so weird, right? Like, just so
get your
fucking
shit
bizarre.
together and feel rushed and terrified. That's what we need.
Yeah, it's very bizarre, man. It's very fucking bizarre. I don't get it.
Look, I don't know who it's gonna be, but somebody's gonna nail the Halo 2 vibe again with shooters, or the Call of Duty 4 vibe with shooters. They're gonna nail that multiplayer one more time. Oh my god. I thought Splitgate would do it.
Okay, you know what? I'm excited. Apparently, by maybe by the end of next month, FTC is going to give the okay for the Activision buyout. You know what excites me is just playing old Call of Duties on Game Pass.
Yeah,
because it's going to there'll be an influx of people who will be able to just jump in, right? So the player base is going to go way up for a lot of those classic CODs.
That's true.
And that's actually what excites me. It's just to go back to that with a expanded player base. But I think we should definitely not forget to mention the fucking disaster of the last week or two. That is Ubisoft.
Sweet Ubies.
Abadab, as Arnold calls it, we're supposed to have released in November. This big first-person open-world Avatar game by Ubisoft that got delayed till next fiscal year.
Which at least it's still coming.
Yeah. So they're pretty much riding out on just Skull and Bones, which comes out like the one day before God of War, and Mario and Rabbids, which also comes out the same day or week as a bunch of other shit.
Well, okay, and
it's also shared with Nintendo.
And Schreier calls it anemic, which is true. It's an anemic lineup, but at least Mario versus Rabbids might be good.
Right, but that's going to be shared revenue.
Yeah,
on that one.
Skull and Bones is going to suck balls. We all know it in our bones.
I hope not, but there have been people on the dev and are like, it's not good. It's pretty shallow. They're just kind of they're just kind of just getting it out.
Yeah, they're doing it because they gotta.
Because they gotta, yeah. And apparently there was supposed to be an Assassin's Creed game called Rift, which was supposed to originally be like a big DLC campaign for Valhalla, and then got moved into being a standalone product. But then that's been quietly and unannounced, because it never got publicly announced. That's been delayed out of this fiscal year as well.
Good lord.
And then apparently the remember that game Immortals Phoenix Rising?
Yeah.
Apparently they're in conceptual phase for not a sequel but a spiritual follow-up.
Okay.
To that game, but it's going to be Polynesian based.
Cool.
And they want to really change. It's still going to be cel shaded, but in a much different style, because they basically we don't want to be compared to Breath of the Wild. We want to look distinct from Breath of the Wild. So they're going with a Polynesian unique art style for their fall game. When I'm like, that sounds great. And they're like, it's in conceptual pre-production state. It's not going to be ready till 25. And I'm like, fuck.
That's Ubisoft's really hurting.
Yes.
How have they not been fucking bought?
And maybe that's the
Nobody
plan.
wants them.
Maybe that's the plan is to devalue them to a point in which they're seen as tasty enough to buy.
Nobody fucking wants them. Nobody wants to buy into that bullshit.
You know what, I feel like they did it to themselves, man. They did it to themselves. Like they had this idea where even our single player games need to be live services, and they burned all their fucking devs out. They harassed, their devs, all their devs out, and yeah, here we are. Now, you want to talk about a real crisis? Like the fucking second in command at fucking Ubisoft, got fired or had to quit, for all his allegations and shit. So,
I'm looking at
top down. Ubisoft was rotten.
Wow. So last year,
from the top to like middle management.
Last year they had 7 games come out.
I guess. I don't know, actually. It's a good question.
No, 6.
I'm assuming Just Dances are still part of this.
Yes, yeah. So they had Just Dance 2022 came out last year in 2021. Yay. So they had Far Cry 6, Riders Republic, Just Dance 2022, Rabbids Party of Legends, Discovery Tour Viking Age, Far Cry VR, Dive into Insanity, and then they had an Assassin's Creed Valhalla, The Siege of Paris, which is probably a cool DLC. I guess that's a lot for a single publisher, but none of that seems memorable.
They also have like 10,000 fucking employees, so...
Yeah, but like Far Cry 6, I don't remember anything about Far Cry 6. It had a really good actor for the villain.
It had that guy from Breaking Bad, right?
Right. They have not had good... Yeah, it was Cuba. They haven't had a great... Well, 2020, okay, they had Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Watch Dogs Legion, Immortals Phoenix Rising, Hyperscape, Tom Clancy's Elite Squad, which I have heard nothing about, Trackmania, Just Dance 2021, and Agos, A Game of Space. Yeah. So it looks like 7 or 8.
Looks better there. And the other thing too is they have some rollerball game in beta.
Rollerball, some
rollerball, and apparently it's pretty fun. But someone was saying that it was on the chopping block to get canned, and they actually had to put out a statement on Twitter saying we are not getting canceled, we're not getting shut down. That doesn't exactly. Which just having that rumor out there is already kind of like ugh, because
it doesn't bode well.
What does this year look like for Ubisoft? Not great.
Well, it just seems like they're progressively putting out less and less over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And in the last year, like we just looked at, had one big game. Really?
This year? Like, I don't even know what you would say. Like, cool. Well, okay, so fiscal year, here's the real question. What does the release schedule look like from April of this year to the end of March next year? Because Avatar's out of it now.
Right.
There's no Assassin's Creed game. What did Ubisoft release starting in April of this year? I don't know if you have that list handy.
Every Ubisoft game coming out in 2022. Let's see what we got. Rainbow Six Extraction came out January 20.
January.
Wow, I didn't hear a fucking thing about that.
That game came and went like a fart in the wind.
It really did. They had another Ezio collection come out. Dawn of Ragnarok, so that's March. Oh, yeah, Trivial Pursuit Roller Champions, which is supposed to be May 25th, 2022. That's the one you're talking about, the rollerball one that wasn't going to get canceled. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was May. They had an Assassin's Creed Origins 60 frames per second patch, June 2nd. Rabbids Party of Legends was June 30th, 2022. Rocksmith Plus, all it has is just 2022, so I guess that must not be out yet. One of the most exciting reveals of E3 2021. Oddballers also just says 2022. It's for Stadia. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, that's not coming. Yeah, when you said Avatar, for some reason I went to the Nickelodeon Every time you do it, and I know every time you tell me about Avatar, I'm like immediately like, oh, you play as a bender. And then you're like, no, James Cameron's Avatar. I feel like we do this every time. Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope 2022. I guess they don't really have anything. The Settlers?
Bro,
Sometime.
it's fucking Skull and Bones,
It was
and it's
originally to be
Mario and
March.
Rabbids.
The Division Heartland. There's no hard release. Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake got delayed indefinitely.
Indefinitely. Got taken out of India. It's now being made in Canada.
Skull and Bones is rumored to be out sometime this year.
No, it has a hard date. It's November 8th. It's literally like a day before God of War.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. They don't have a whole lot. This is I mean that's oof. Ooh, that's sad. That's Ubisoft used to be pretty exciting. Didn't they have like a 13 remake that they were making?
They did. It was terrible.
Oh.
It was a complete bomb. It was broken on release.
God, I forgot all about it. That's I feel like that that explains Ubisoft of the last year at least. I forgot all about it. I have a Skull and Bones t-shirt from the E3 they announced it at.
No, I think Matt maybe did a what happened on it. 13's Reviled remake is getting another remake by a different developer. Yeah. Gold Classic 13 received an HD remake in 2020 from developer Playmagic. The project attempted to update the game for modern platforms, but fell more than a little short, which is why just 2 years later, Microids has announced it has handed the game over to a new studio to give the 13 remake a remake of its own.
Amazing. I would love for a good remake of it. I loved that game. But there was a time where Ubisoft was an exciting studio.
There was.
And what is that, a few years ago now?
Yeah. Well, for me, the most exciting time for Ubisoft was I want to say Christmas. Was it Christmas 03 or 04? It was when Sands of Time and Beyond Good and Evil came out.
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty good year.
That was a really, I was like, man, I really like Ubisoft. Ubisoft's great. Now Ubisoft sucks.
Oh yeah, 2003 had 13, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, Rayman 3, Beyond Good and Evil, Star Ocean Till the Ends of Time, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six 3, Batman: Rise of Sin Tzu, but I didn't play that.
I own that on GameCube.
Well, I hope you liked it.
To beat 'em up, I got it for like $12 or something on a sale.
And then those are all the games I fucking care about. Puzzle Pirates. That was pretty cool. They had CSI. That was the year they had CSI. So, yeah, they killed it that year. Although I have noticed, if you just go through and type the year, they're making less and less games. Oh, damn. 2004, they made a fuckload of games. Onimusha 3.
Well,
Far Cry, the original.
Parts of the world.
Published, yeah. Far Cry, the original Tom Clancy, Splinter Cell, Pandora. What is it, Pandora what?
No, I think they were publishing PC versions of Capcom games. That's what it was. Like Onimusha, Resident Evil, Devil May Cry.
Right, yeah, they were. Warrior Within. Isn't that the one that had all the metal? Yeah. Ape Escape Pumped and Primed. Yeah, it just seems like their games have been kind of slowly trickling into just shit. That's rough.
Well, and don't get me wrong. Most game publishers don't pump out as many games now as they did 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's longer and more expensive. So
yeah, that's the nature. But it's less about the number of titles Ubisoft's playing on, more about their outlook isn't looking good. Like their quantity is suffering as much as their quality. Now, it'd be one thing if it was okay, well, Ubisoft has a bunch of games. Ubisoft has smaller amount of games coming out, but they're coming out and they're really good. They're really, really well made, really polished experiences. But they're not, because something, and frankly, we know a lot about it from the allegations, whatever. But Ubisoft is practically the king of project management failure at this point.
Yeah, they've totally fallen apart.
Yeah, and
Is this just a maturing of the workforce? Like all the
Yeah, I honestly
OGs
think
have
so.
left. They're
Yeah,
all
well,
done.
it's not the fucking frat club it used to be, and nor should it be, because frankly, like if you limit your workforce strictly to males, you're gonna miss out on some genius programmers, artists, whatever that are female, and if you limit your workforce to your frat boy culture, you're going to drive away real talent that maybe doesn't have the same, you know, fucking Animal House style mentality as you do. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, but that's not what I'm getting at. What I mean is like, is this a maturing of the workforce where like all the old school people are retiring and you now
Mm,
don't have project managers or you don't have, you don't have people with years and
That's what's happening to
years.
the airline industry and pilots, from what I said. But that's not necessarily here. Yes, people are getting older, but like Michael Ansel, like left the industry because he was dodging allegations.
Right, yeah, cuz he's a piece of shit.
Eves Gilmont's best buddy, had to leave Ubisoft, golden parachute out because of all the allegations that were coming against him. Like these are not great. Like the only one I can think of that was like kind of, oh, I'm retiring, but he didn't even retire, was the original, was the guy who was producer or whatever on Final Fantasy. Was it Hashimoto or someone? He retired, but then he immediately announced, or he announced he was leaving. But he immediately got picked up. He came.
Well, I'm not even talking about the
Was it Sony?
directors.
Wait a minute.
I'm not even
Time
talking
out.
about the directors. I'm talking about like the mid-level, project managers, team leads and shit like that. Like have they all just like has the industry matured to the point where now we're going to have growing pains as like the next stock of people expand cuz the industry's bigger than it's ever been too.
Right.
Like they just don't have the experienced team leads and management, if that makes sense.
Right. No. Oh my God, dude. Yeah, the Final Fantasy producer Shinji Hashimoto, he retired from his duties on May 31st, 2022. On June 16th, 2022, he announced he would be senior advisor at Sony Music Entertainment Japan, as well as board member for ForwardWorks. Which I don't know if you know, Sony Music Entertainment Japan, that actually handles all their mobile games as well. It's not just music.
Huh.
They actually have game and like anime and film ties as well.
This is going to make a lot of money.
Now,
Retiring
I'm
in
not.
style.
I don't want to jump to conclusions here, but isn't that kind of interesting from what we talked about earlier?
It is a bit interesting.
He was brand manager for Square Enix for a long, and Final Fantasy for a
Yeah, they
long
clearly
time.
they're gonna they've got inside man now.
Isn't that interesting?
So were any final thoughts on the days of delays?
You know what the honest to God answer out of this is fucking fix your quality of life for your developers. Fucking fix it. Work smarter, not harder. That might mean 4-day work weeks. That might mean strict no overtime measurements like Monolith Soft. That might mean hybrid office models. Some in office, some work from home, some both. But I think the solution to your project management problems is to realize that human beings are making these games. And you cannot fucking bully your way into finished products anymore, because it takes too damn long. It costs too damn much, to make a video game and release a video game and have that game function today's like it is getting more and more resource intensive just to finish a game, period.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you cannot bully your way out of this, and you cannot just hire any star-eyed game designer off the street any longer and just throw people at the problem. You
Yeah.
want you want your project management to go right. You start treating the people who have to make this stuff well. That's how you get out of this rut. And maybe that means you're going to have some down years. Maybe you're going to have low release schedule years. Maybe shit's going to be rough for a year or two.
It's already rough for Ubisoft. They
already
can
rough
only
for
go
Ubisoft.
up.
Well, that's the thing, though. Not only is it rough, it's not looking good.
Right.
It's doubly bad because now they don't have they don't have feet to fill the shoes of all the vacancies they have there. So, yeah, I think I've been saying for a while there's a real problem with project management, and it keeps happening, it keeps happening, it keeps happening. Like we don't even know, but we can clearly see like shit at Rockstar is not going as speedy and as well as it should be. Obviously,
a friend of mine who is a production coordinator. One of the interesting things that he said when I had first started working with him, and I asked him like, "Oh, why production coordinating?" And he basically said because everybody wants to be a creative, everybody wants to have the comma creative blah 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 behind their name, but a production coordinator is every bit as important for a project actually happening, and you will always need production coordinators, always. And that's why I picked production coordinator. Like you need lots of experience to be good at it, and like a good production coordinator makes a project happen. I think that that's kind of an interesting take because it is true of every industry where you know, there's probably no shortage of art directors and creative directors and fucking. Well, I've held the title.
Everyone's got great ideas.
Yeah, but not a lot of executors out there, and so I'm betting that that's the problem. It's the mid-level production coordinators, whatever that job is in game development. You know, I bet you that's what they need, and I don't know. You know, again, that's not something you can go to school for, as far as I know. Like you just your hard experience at a bunch of different aspects of development, and so you're the guy central to scheduling, coordinating, and getting everybody on the same page. And it's a lot of soft skills. I don't know. I think that's probably the job that is hardest hit too, because you also. My understanding is like it's in film, it's super easy to explain that on paper. Everybody knows how important a production coordinator is because of how many fucking people you got going there. But I wonder if on the page, you know, it's hard for that guy to, you know, keep getting work in game development. You know, if you're going just off of a paper resume type thing, you know, because if you haven't been developing, if you haven't been programming for 5 years, if you've been a project manager for 5 years, maybe they just didn't think they were that important. I don't know. It's all speculation on that point, but like it seems like that's what's missing.
Well, I think there's also a big disconnect from certain higher parts, top level of a company, and
true, yeah,
and people with the money, people who cash the checks. The check cashers have no fucking idea how game development works.
Right,
So
yeah, often they're on the publishing side anyway.
Yeah, so people who are writing the checks, cashing the checks, whatever, they're not they don't have any understanding whatsoever what actual game development looks like. So for them it's you know, it's weird.
Yeah, that could be the problem.
And too. I've heard this personally from people in the industry that there is disconnect between, you know, oh, the producer of this project came from a completely unrelated industry to gaming. And that's no fucking idea how game development's actually made. Their resume looks good. I worked for this big company, and you know, this during my tenure there, the company's profits went up. So
the worst is when it's like a PR exec. Like, oh, I was the head of PR and marketing for blah, blah, blah. Now I'm a creative executive. And you're like, fuck. Like, I'm an idea man, son. On that note, we've got some patrons to thank. If you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week was John L. Thank you, John. And our producers for this episode are The Arnett, Scrunami, Kuroi35, HyperViper89, Ziggy Z, and Online Persona. Thank you, dudes, and we will catch you next time.
Later, dudes.